Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Six for Six. I'm your host, Trevor Williams, and we have another great World Cup matchups looking like in the quarterfinals thus far, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a ride of a World Cup. We've seen the ups, the downs, the comebacks, and everything far in between. It's been a fantastic World Cup from what we've seen. Argentina coming back down 2 scores and beating Egypt in the final few minutes, where they ended up scoring 3 goals in 13 minutes. What an impressive feat for that Argentina squad. But now they got Switzerland coming up in the quarterfinals on the 11th. Then you also have on the 11th Norway versus England on the 11th as well. Then you have, I would say, Spain versus Belgium on the 10th. And then tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, we have France versus Morocco as well. All great games, all interesting matchups in the quarterfinals. I don't think we could have asked much more for a better quarterfinal matchup. And this isn't, sadly, with Portugal and Ronaldo not being here, it's a tough one for that fan base and tough for the Ronaldo fans out there. This was his World Cup, in my opinion. But like I said at the beginning of this World Cup, it's definitely Spain's more than anything else. It's trying to really, if you break it down, is getting the legends their final shot at that holy grail to complete their resume. Same with Brazil. They were trying to get Neymar to the promised land, but him and his injuries just couldn't, get through all of that at the same time. So it is one of those things, ladies and gentlemen, where stars can't reach the holy grail and their career is incomplete, but they have to retire just because of age or the game's catching up for them, like the saying goes. But, you just got to be mindful of that when you look at these World Cups. It doesn't define a career, but it does make a statement on what your career looks like. I mean, with France and Kylian Mbappe right now, ladies and gentlemen, it's a statement for him and the French team right now, and they've been on fire for this entire tournament. And they're looking to really punch their ticket to the semis, and if not to the finals at this rate of where they're going at. And if they win the finals, we could have saw Kylian Mbappe get a three-peat in a World Cup, and that's insane in itself. But now, if you look at that probably won't be the same French team if you think about if they would have won the last World Cup going into this one. But, hey, they've turned it around. They're on a mean streak, the big bads of this tournament. But we'll see what this French squad can end up doing. But now we can dive into today's topics, breaking down the 4 games in the quarterfinals and all that stuff. But without further ado, let's dive into last time's episode. Last time's episode, we got 6 correct picks, ladies and gentlemen. It's looking relatively well for us this season. I mean, I'm pretty surprised that we got all 6 picks correct, but that's where that kind of ends up residing. And that means our season 5 record now, ladies and gentlemen, is 62, 27, and 6. Our margin of wins is just tremendous for this World Cup. And I like where this is at. I think, like I said, we're on a great track record. We'll probably hit 100 and it make season 5 look really, really great. Keeping our losses to this much of a minimum is very, very, very tricky in itself. But I'm really glad that we have this at this point. I think this will probably be one of the statements or staple seasons of 6 for 6. We'll look how good our correct picks end up going. I don't think we've had a losing season yet, but every once in a while we might get a losing season. But so far it looks like the odds have been in our favor, and we will go from that point forward. But without further ado, let's dive into the matchups. So in the 4th slot, we're taking a look at Argentina, Switzerland, quarterfinals, July 11th, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time on Fox. Argentina, like I said in the opening, got out of a nail-biter against Egypt, getting 3 goals in 13 minutes. So you can't count out this Argentina squad with Lionel Messi. Lionel Messi will find a way to get a goal. So Switzerland, in my mind, I feel like they're playing already down a goal. But they tied Colombia, went to PKs, and won 4-3 in a thrilling fashion how that one goes. So this Swiss team has really not much to lose. Their defense just can't be like Swiss cheese because Lionel Messi will just eat that up and find ways to exploit this Switzerland D. But all they got to do is take them down to penalties, and it's up to fate and chance. And there's a chance that Switzerland can get to the semis and Argentina goes home packing. So really, at this point, Switzerland in their mind is they're playing down by a goal, but they can't give up any goals to force extra time and then eventually PKs. Argentina, they're just going to start going off. They're going to find ways to create goals, create momentum. And when they're trailing, they will find ways to score. And we saw that in the Egypt game. But if we're going to go with the pick here, ladies and gentlemen, I like Argentina to get a victory out of here to advance them to the semifinals. Next up in the third slot, ladies and gentlemen, we got Norway versus England, Holland versus Kane. Golden Boot race is starting to escalate between these two teams, and the quarterfinals is one way to end one of the Golden Boot contenders in this World Cup. Will it be Holland or will it be Harry Kane? We have to see how that develops. England taking care of Mexico, but they had a red card for one of their players, and they almost blew it because they were down 10 players, and Mexico was making a nice comeback. But Holland has been very consistent and making things great with how Norway's been performing. But it's like one-star player versus two-star players. I feel like how this is a lot matching itself up. It's kind of similar to like France, Morocco. Like there's just more star power. But we'll see if Norway can hang in there. I'm going to go with England on this pick on the quarterfinals on July 11th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time on Fox, ladies and gentlemen. Last but not least. Then we have in our second slot, Spain, Belgium quarterfinals, July 10th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific Time on Fox, ladies and gentlemen. Spain is looking solid in this tournament right now. They got back on track. They're being a contender at this point. Belgium just doing things for Romelu, getting him to the promised land finally. But it's got to get through Spain. If they can't get through Spain, it's going to be the end. But even still, on the other side of the bracket that they have to deal with, if they get out of Spain, they're facing France most likely. I know Morocco will find a way to hang in there and create some chaos, but this France squad is on a different level. But Spain, Belgium has to get creative. Like Spain just needs to do what they're doing, keep that momentum going, and they're fine. Belgium is, I would say, is a dark, I wouldn't say a dark horse, but it's just a team that can trail behind, but then like at a moment's notice and bring things back. So it's really going to be interesting on what kind of Belgian team we're going to get on the 10th of July, ladies and gentlemen. So where I'm going to stand on this, I'm going to go with the Spain pick. Like I said, I picked them kind of to win the tournament this year, kind of still riding on that high of them trying to win the tournament, but anything can happen. France is still that team to beat right now, and I feel like it's going to be very tough for the Spain squad to get out of the I would say quarters going into semis and getting out of semis to the finals. But for quarters, I got Spain winning this matchup against Belgium. And like I said, last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, game of the week, France versus Morocco, quarterfinals, July 9th, tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time on Fox, ladies and gentlemen. France is on a mission to get back to the World Cup to win and get another star on their kit and make things happen versus Morocco. Things go not against their way, but it's just been so much of an interesting story for this Moroccan team. They've been knocking off key teams along the way, making key statements. Knocking off France would be huge, but this French squad is just, I wouldn't say on death watch at this point. It's just such a class to watch this French team. They're just so poised, trying to get goals, and they're just attacking, and they're hungry for another shot at the World Cup final, because like it really kind of defines your career when you start looking at your World Cup and your World Cup record in the finals. Like Kylian Mbappe is now 1-1 in the World Cup final, but if he ends up winning this one, he'd be 2-1, and that's a pretty impressive feat. But then you start looking back saying he could have beat Messi if the French team performed, and that's not a knock on him. It's a knock on that French team that cost him his second World Cup and a back-to-back champion. So we'll see ends up happening as things develop in this matchup. It's going to be a classic game here, ladies and gentlemen. France versus Morocco, July 9th, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time on Fox. Let's do a quick recap, and we'll get you on out of here. Fourth slot, ladies and gentlemen, we got Argentina, Switzerland, quarterfinals, July 11th, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time on Fox, and I have Argentina winning it. In the third slot, we got Norway versus England, quarterfinals, July 11th, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time on Fox, and I have England winning it. In the second slot, we got Spain versus Belgium, quarterfinals, July 10th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific Time on Fox, and I have Spain winning it. And last but not least, France versus Morocco quarterfinals, July 9th, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time on Fox. And I have France winning this as well. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. Obviously, before I close out, remember, guys, last episode we were 6-0, and our season 5 record this far is 62, 27, and 6. Thank you so much for watching this episode of 6 for 6, and we'll catch you next time here on 6 for 6. So long for now. Bye-bye.